So, good evening and welcome everybody that's already arrived. I'm going to crack on because it's 7 o'clock and we've got 7 presentations to get through. I'm going to keep this intro section super brief. Apparently, we've had over 90 people signed up. So I have a request for everyone to please remember to stay muted unless you are speaking so that we don't get any background feedback. Presenters, remember to turn your phones off. If you have any questions, please can you type them in the chat, and at the beginning of your question, if you can put who your question is aimed at, whether either their name or the organization, or just whether it's a general question. And at the end, when we get to the Q&A section, I will try to field all of those questions. But what if we don't have time to get to all of them, whatever doesn't get answered, I'll compile all the questions and we will get them answered in writing and share the answers by email. And also I will share it when I've finished doing this intro. If you have received the sign up email because somebody else shared it with you and you haven't signed up to the Somerset Climate Action Network to receive our mail out, please do that. I will share the link with you now. I'll do it in a minute. I can't do 2 things at once. And I think that's it. Apart from, please save in your diary Thursday, the 13th of January at 7 p.m, which will be our next forum, hosted hopefully by Britain Talks Climate, on how to bring the conversation of climate action to people who are just a bit climate tired or bored. So moving swiftly on, let's go to our first presentation from Sonia Bedford, representing Avalon Community Energy. Take it away, Sonia.
Thank you, Sonia. Hopefully, can you see my presentation okay? Brilliant. Okay, I'm just trying to get that from, there we go, full screen. Brilliant. Welcome everybody. Lovely to see so many people out on a cold and windy night in their front rooms. As Sonia said, I am going to give you a short intro to Avalon Community Energy and what we're up to and what we have been up to. By day, I am a renewable energy solicitor, but by night, I'm a community energy practitioner, and I'm also a director of Somerset Climate Action Network, as well as Avalon Community Energy. So Avalon Community Energy has a remit of Glastonbury, Wells Street area. It was founded in 2013 and currently has 200 members. I joined Avalon Community Energy fairly early as a volunteer director at the start, because it's close to where I live, but also because they were actively engaged in looking at a number of different energy projects in the area, and I really wanted to be involved in a community energy group that was close to home, and also had a lot of passion and energy for delivering renewable energy in its area. We had an initial share offer for a solar roof project which raised 185,000, and through that share offer we have delivered a few rooftop solar installations, of which I'm going to tell you a little bit more about in a minute. We, to our investors, for that share offer, we pay 5% interest, and the capital is repaid over 20 years. And we generate a fair amount of solar energy, not as much as we would have liked on day one, but with much more in the pipeline. And because we're a community benefit society, our aim is to deliver more than just renewable energy to our community, but also to provide surpluses to the community benefit fund, of more of which in a minute. So I'm just going to show you a couple of our solar installations. This is Brookside Academy, and there's an 82 kilowatt PV array. And Brookside's been a real success story for Avalon Community Energy, not only because the solar generation, around 70% is used by the school, but also because it's become a real educational facility through the headmaster and the teachers at the school, and has enabled the school to really look at its energy use and provide information to its students on renewable energy. And so it's had that dual benefit. We have, you can see quite easily there that the fairly standard rooftop installations, and Avalon Community Energy have taken a lease from the school for a 20-year period. And that's a fairly typical community energy model. Next up is Evercreech. As you can see, it's a fairly standard industrial building. Evercreech is an industrial estate just outside Shepton Mallet. And it's a good contrast to the school because when we initially did some feasibility work, which we had rural community energy funding to do, we surveyed the whole of the estate, and we were hoping, I knew this was going to happen. The dog is going to start barking for a couple of minutes because someone's just arrived, but hopefully he'll stop making an appearance fairly shortly. We looked at what potentially doing the whole of the estate, and we did only end up with one installation, even though we had interest from nearly all of the tenants on the industrial estate. And the reason for not putting solar on all of those industrial buildings were numerous, and I think shows some of the difficulties facing community energy in doing solar rooftops. All of the industrial premises are let to various different occupiers, and some of those occupiers have different length leases. And when you're modeling a community rooftop installation, you like to be able to see that there would be the ability to generate and have a lease on there for at least 20 years if possible. And when you've got a tenant on there who only has a very short-term lease, that makes the model quite difficult, because you then have to ensure that the landowner and the freeholder of the site will enter into a further agreement ensuring that new tenants will actually take up the solar and buy the energy from that. We have been very lucky with the Evercreech estates. We actually have had a change of tenant on this building, and we've been able to move the solar to power purchasing to the new tenant. So it's quite a good example of how to make that work when you've got short tenants on an industrial estate. But to date, we haven't been able to put any more solar, but it's one to watch for the future. Another school, Hugh Sexy Middle School is actually in Wedmore. We cooperated with Green Wedmore to put the solar on Hugh Sexy's school, and that was installed fairly recently in 2019. And again, that's been a great project for the school, who were really, really enthusiastic and driven, and it was showed what can be done when you have a school team who really want the solar to be there, and proves the importance of engaging with the school and making sure that all of those who are going to help you make the lease agreements work are actually actively fighting for you to get that done. Because doing a community school rooftop is not an easy task, and there's a lot of stories from community energy groups about the difficulties of installing on schools, and it shouldn't be the case really. They're perfect places for solar installations. I mentioned earlier that the surpluses from the schools, from the solar installations, are allocated for community benefit. There are still so many people living in fuel poverty, and that includes within Avalon's area. And that statistic there, 2.6 million UK households in fuel poverty, is only rising at the moment. We've seen with increase in energy bills dramatically with the increase in wholesale electricity and gas pricing. So through the Community Benefit Fund, there's grants available for draft proofing, insulation, curtains, LED lights, small things, but which make a really, really big difference. Just a quick bit on what's next for Avalon Community Energy. And all the information about our projects are on our website. But we're now involved in our biggest project ever, which is very, very exciting, through the Glastonbury Town Deal Investment Plan. We have initial feasibility work being undertaken at the moment, and the idea is to regenerate various areas of Glastonbury through the town deal, and Avalon will be responsible jointly with Mendip to deliver the energy part of the town deal, and that will include a lot of ground mounted solar, rooftop solar, potentially some batteries, and also some EV charge points at the park and ride, and we're open to looking at other technologies as well. As I say, the feasibility is underway for that at the moment. And finally, a slide on community energy in general, because I think it's really important not to underestimate the growing nature of community energy and what it actually does more than just install renewable energy. And this slide is taken from Community Energy England's report, which shows exactly the impact that community energy is having. And you can see at the bottom there, 3.13 million community benefit. I mean, that's a big figure that's going straight back into the communities to do good work, like the fuel poverty work I mentioned earlier. So that's my whistle-stop tour around Avalon Community Energy. I've actually taken the liberty and put Stuart, who is our chair's email address at the bottom there, who's on the call. But I'm very happy to let you have mine as well. And there's a link to our website as well. So thank you very much. And I'll pass you back to Sonia.
Thank you very much, Sonia. That was great and totally within time, even better. So I'm going to quickly move on, although there was one question that came in because we've still got a little bit of time. On your slide there was some shading. Does that cause problems on one of the arrays? One of the arrays had some tree shading. Does that cause a problem?
It does cause problems when we do the initial site surveys and feasibility work. You have to look at the shading from different angles. Now, if you've got a larger array, it can be mitigated by that, but it's better not to have any shading at all, because it does make the outputs from the array much less, and it also has an impact on the whole array if you've got a bit of shading on some of it. So usually better to not have it, but you can still put the array up if there is a bit of shading, because you'll still get generation from those panels that aren't shaded. Great,
thank you very much, Sonia. And we will now move swiftly on to another one of Somerset Climate Action Network's board members, Jane Durney, who will be speaking on behalf of IDEA Solar Streets project in Bruton.
Just 1 second. Slideshow from the beginning. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you about solar streets. I actually represent One Planet Bruton here as well as being a director of Somerset Climate Action Network. So what is solar streets? Some of you might live in areas covered by solar streets, but essentially it's bringing quality low-cost solar PV to entire communities. So it's aimed at both homes and businesses, and the communities involved to raise awareness of it. And the discount is well, bulk purchasing means that the solar panels are available at a discounted price, and this is also achieved through condensing installations, so focusing on one town or area at a time, trying to group the installations so scaffolding gets put up and then just moved down the street, and it also means that there's minimal travel time for the crews between the jobs. So where is it? This is just slow to move on. So solar streets is in a number of places in Somerset, and some of you might live in them. Brew Valley, which is quite a large area, Bruton Castle, Carey, Frome, Ham Hill, which is a fairly recent addition, Milbourne Port, as well as Sherborne, just outside Somerset, Somerton and Wells. It's also supported by Mendip Council and South Somerset District Council, and it's in 23 locations in all, so it actually operates beyond Somerset, so including St Albans, High Wycombe and a number of other places, but really their focus is predominantly on Somerset. And who's behind Solar Streets? Well, it actually started up the road from Bruton in Frome, and it's a renewable energy company idea, who are the creators and installers of it. And when Frome wanted to do a scheme like this, they put out a tender, and IDEA were the only organisation to come back with a proposal that actually worked. Also involved in Solar Streets is a local sustainability group, climate group. In Bruton, it's One Planet Bruton, with support from other groups locally, and also the local council. They like to have the town council on board to help, I suppose, give credibility and also to support in terms of raising awareness of it. And then the Green Group is involved in doing the marketing and PR for Solar Streets, and actually it was via the Green Group that it was them that I got in touch with to bring Solar Streets to Bruton. And we started a year ago in Bruton. So in Bruton, it's a partnership between IDEA, the Green Group, Bruton Town Council and Castle Carey Town Council, as well as One Planet Bruton. And where we are, the area is Bruton, Castle Carey, and up to 5 miles away. So actually that includes Evercreech, that Sonia's just mentioned, as well as Wincanton and all of the villages in between. And here it's really helping us to deliver Bruton's carbon neutral plan. And there's a link to their website, which has a lot more information. So what the offer is, it's a free, no obligation survey. The cost of a 12 panel 4 kilowatt peak solar PV array is £4,000 for the basic array. And when we did a comparison, that's around 20 to 25% reduction on a standalone quote. I mean, there might be cheaper ones, but by and large, it still represents a reduction on sort of the comparable standalone quotes. But they can also provide advice on extra equipment. So installing batteries, more and more people these days. In fact, I think several of the installations in Bruton have been for the array as well as batteries. Something called iBoost, which enables you to divert excess electricity to your water tank if you've got one. It's effectively powering an immersion heater, and there are monitors and an app to monitor it. And the Energy Savings Trust reckons that there's 1.5 tonnes of CO2 per year saving per installation. So it quickly adds up when you've got multiple installations. And for each, what we were interested in as well is that for each domestic installation, £50 goes towards local green projects. And where we are, that £50 per installation goes to the parish or to projects in the parish where the installation happens, and it's slightly larger for commercial installations. We haven't actually had any of those yet. They've all been domestic. And so just a bit more about IDEA. So they've been installing PV since 2008. They're registered with all the organisations you'd expect them to be registered for, so MCS, Trustmark, HIES and NAPIT. And they really are, they do scaffolding as well as doing renewable energy. And I suppose the two go quite sort of hand in hand, really. And they've installed well over 1,000 schemes to date. And then I've mentioned the Green Group before, but really they act as the contact for councils and for groups who were interested in, interested and running solar streets in their areas. So the way it works for the customer is if they're interested, they simply email or phone up IDEA with details, their address and a contact number, also whether or not they're in a conservation area, because that impacts whether or not you need planning permission. And IDEA do a desk survey, really using Google Earth, sort of highlighting any sort of problematic installations. Following that, they do a physical technical survey, and that's followed by the quote. And then they take a deposit and book the installation. And I'm in the process because where I live, it's a bit more complicated. But the people I know who've done it have said it's actually been pretty painless. They've been really impressed with the whole process, how it's worked. And then if people need help with financing this, they can be put in touch with Lendology, which is a CIC. It's a lender that is backed by a number of local authorities, and I've listed all the Somerset. In fact, it's backed by all of the Somerset district councils. And what they can do is provide home improvement loans up to £15,000, and that can cover PV, but it can also cover sort of refurbishment and retrofits to improve the energy performance of people's homes. And the interest rate is around 4.2%, which is pretty low, and I've included the link there. So that in a nutshell, because I was told to keep it very, very brief, is solar streets. I've got a few statistics which came through just sort of, pretty recently. And at the moment, in the whole of the solar streets schemes, they've installed 125 completely, and 98 are nearly there. They're underway. They've been installed, but they haven't quite got through the final paperwork. And then there are 437 people still deciding. But in terms of the completed sales, they represent 340 kilowatts peak of installed capacity. And they're producing, I think it's 300 megawatt hours of electricity per annum. And they save over 100 tons of CO2 per annum. And there's been community benefits of £5,400. And the discount that Solar Streets can deliver or offer to customers means that customers that in aggregate have saved £200,000 on the purchase price of their systems compared to standalone systems. So if you live in an area where Solar Streets is and you're interested, then I urge you to get in touch with them, because with energy prices being shooting up, it actually makes the economic case far more viable for many people for PV, and their lead time for installation is getting longer. And if you want to bring Solar Streets to your area, I haven't included their link there, but if you email me, my email's there, jane@oneplanetbruton.org, I can put you in touch with the Green Group. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jane. I think we've got time to answer one question from you. How close do the properties need to be together?
The reality is they've been installing whoever signs up. So while in theory they would be close by, as long as they're in the area, it's fine. So I know that they've done installations in Bruton and then Castle Carey and Galhampton in fairly quick succession. So it's not the same street, but it's very nearby.
Great. Thank you very much, Jane. And we will now move on to Pete Kapaner from Bath and West Community Energy.
Thank you, Sonia. So my slides. Well, hello, everybody. Thank you for inviting me along this evening, and asked to tell you a little bit about Bath and West Community Energy, what we've done, plans. We established in 2010 as a result of a range of conversations in the Ram pub in Widcombe, coming out of environmental organisations Transition Bath and Transition Corsham, with the specific aim of trying to establish clean local energy, community owned, for the common good. And importantly, from our point of view, we wanted to set ourselves up as a community business that could generate some scale, but also importantly, setting up as a community benefit society that had community benefit in its core principles, democratic, one member, one vote, regardless of shareholding, with an asset lock so that our assets can't be sold for commercial gain, and importantly, not for profit. So similar organisation to Avalon, Community Energy and other groups tonight. Since 2010, we've done a range of projects with a primary focus on the Bath and surrounding area. But we've also done some work in Somerset, which I'll come on to talk a bit about. So during the time, we've raised £20 million through community fundraising and debt from Triodos to build out nearly 12.5 megawatts of community solar, 11 rooftop schemes in schools, 4 community buildings, council offices, as well as rugby club, range of other different buildings, and 5 ground mount solar schemes ranging from small 250 kilowatts up to 5 megawatts, and 1 small hydro scheme, perfectly formed but very costly hydro scheme, which just makes it nice that we've got some things other than solar PV. Importantly, those projects are all kind of owned, held in trust, if you like, for the community, and benefit the community through the community fund. We distribute surplus, again, like Avalon, back through an independent charitable trust that was set up. We set up to distribute grants back into community action on carbon reduction, fuel poverty. Up until now, we've donated nearly 300,000 through our community fund on a range of different projects, from waste reduction, reuse projects, repair cafes, transport, community orchards, school projects, a whole range of different things. Some really exciting projects that have shifted quite a lot of community interest and action as a result. All of this is underpinned by a growing supporters network of volunteers that support, identify project opportunities and help us develop projects, help us communicate what we're doing back into the community. Because what we're trying to do here is create a level of scale. When we set up, we had the choice as to whether we would work just in one community, or we'd try and work across multiple communities and build scale, but still try and retain that strong community link. And that's been a constant pressure for us all the way through since 2010. So we took the decision to work across quite a large area rather than just focus on one project. So we have the potential for building enough projects to renewables to support quite a large chunk of the demand ultimately within the area. But that means it's really important that we retain the community links, because obviously with scale and a wider geographical area, then that can be a problem. So the supporters network becomes really critical in keeping us embedded in the communities that we're working in. As I said, our primary area is Bath and North East Somerset, West Wilts, bit of South Gloss. But we are working outside of those areas, particularly in partnership with other community energy groups. So we helped Frome Renewable Energy Companies set up and develop their first projects with them. And I'm still on the board of Frico, in fact. We also developed one of our ground mount schemes, a 5 megawatt scheme in Crewkerne, near Crewkerne, in Somerset, working in partnership with South Somerset Community Energy. And we're wanting to try and work with them to enable them to take on ownership of some of the project over time. And we're also now working with Avalon Community Energy on a flexibility project that I'll say just a little bit more about. So that balance of scale, I think, is critical, and working out what your kind of core business model is, if you like, when you're starting up. How are you going to generate income into the projects in order to, in our case, start to be able to employ staff? So that for us was a critical thing. So we're not purely voluntary based. We do work with volunteers, and that's the lifeblood of the organisation. But because we've been able to build a bit of scale, we've now got a staff team of 7 people, ranging in terms of the amount of time they work a week, roughly 5 full-time equivalents. And that means that we've got some real resource that we can apply to the work that we do, and consistency as well, which is critical if we're going to develop some of the large projects that we're looking at. So now we've also got a pipeline of just under 40 megawatts of new community solar, ground mount and rooftop schemes, primarily in the area that I was talking about, the kind of Bath surrounding area. And there's some really exciting projects in there, looking also battery storage and EV charge point network, community-owned EV charge point network. So there's lots of things for communities to get, if there are people on the call interested in starting up a community energy group, then there's lots of stuff to get stuck into. the last thing I just wanted to mention was the Flex Community Project, which is an exciting innovation scheme that we are working on with funding from the EU, Horizon 2020. We're 1 year into a 3-year project, looking at demand side response. How can we manage electricity demand in particular so that we can balance supply and demand a bit more effectively and enable us to integrate even higher levels of renewable electricity onto our electricity network. We need to be able to minimize peak demands, which is the time when our electricity is most carbon intensive and most expensive to supply. So we're working in the Mendip area with Avalon Community Energy to try and first raise awareness about the energy transition, the importance of managing electricity demand, and then we're looking to recruit pioneers, households with electric hot water heating, electric vehicle charge points or heat pumps, or interested in installing them, to help us test smart technology through cloud-based platform that will enable us to manage electricity demand within homes a bit more effectively, to enable us to minimize peak demand. So if people are interested in this sort of area, then do get in touch, particularly in the Mendip area around Glastonbury Street, Wells, Shepton Mallet. And so finally, kind of just from contacts, Julia Connor is one of our members of our team, actually based in Shepton Mallet. She's doing marketing communications work. If you're interested or part of a network that you think could help us promote the Flex Community Project, in particular in that area, then do get in touch. So thank you.
Unmute. Yes. Thank you very much, Pete. Everyone's doing brilliantly, keeping their presentation super short, which I appreciate is really difficult because there's so much to impart. I'm going to take us straight on to the next presentation, which is from Steve Muse, representing Wedmore Community Solar Co-op.
Great, thanks, Sonia. Let's just get this up. Okay, can everyone see that okay? Brilliant, thank you. And I think what's good about tonight as well, it's such a great variety of different schemes. So hopefully this is really useful for people because they're all quite different and unique in their own sort of way. So hopefully we can allow you to have some ideas and spark some ideas about what everyone else can do. So, so my name's Steve Muse. I live here in Wedmore, and I'm going to talk to you tonight about Wedmore Community Power Cooperative, or Wedmore CPC as we call it. That's us there at our opening ceremony back in October 2013. So I'm just going to quickly go through where we're based, how many homes it covers, other benefits, brief outline of what you need to do to get going, and looking out for the pitfalls. So Wedmore, we're a fairly large village, right in the middle of Somerset, up in the middle of the Levels and Moors. Just see it on a little map. So not far from Cheddar and Glastonbury and Wells and Burnham. So we like to call ourselves the Isle of Wedmore. So climate change, we're very conscious about climate change and the potential to become an island again. Wedmore Community Power Co-op is an offshoot of Green Wedmore. Our solar farm was built in 2013. We raised £1 million to put in the 1 megawatt size solar panels, 4,000 panels it took to build. So how many homes does it cover? I mean, it's a tricky question to answer really, but I mean, approximately 300 homes roughly, which is about 15% of the parish. It's a big part of our Zero Carbon Wedmore 2030 scheme. So as a community, we're trying to reduce our carbon footprint as much as we can, but also to generate as much renewable energy as we can. So it's all part of that balance. And in addition to this project, we've been doing all sorts of other things with Green Wedmore linked to energy. So we have a Warmer Wedmore scheme, which has been helping to retrofit social housing in the village. We give a lot of energy advice to people. We've just launched our version of Solar Streets called Green Wedmore Solar 1000 scheme. Nice ambitious target of putting PV on 1,000 homes, but it's going well so far. And also we're looking at future renewable energy schemes, so more of that to come. Now, there was a question earlier on about wildlife and solar panels and so forth. As you can see from the sheep on the right, there are lots of pictures of sheep around our solar panels. We deliberately put our panels a little bit higher up so that it allows grazing to continue. So farming is continued there. So the landowners there, they get the benefit of having the income from the solar panels, but they're also able to keep farming. And also wildlife is encouraged. So we're just about to do another wildlife survey of the area, and we think we've probably improved wildlife in this part of our parish. So the other benefits that we get from Wedmore CPC, so the interest goes back to our investors, of course. We're a non-profit organisation, but the community grant scheme, we've given back so far about £68,000, and by the end of the scheme, we should give back about £600,000 in total. This goes on to support other projects in the village. So we've already managed to install PV on the village hall in our nearby village of Feel. Wedmore Village Hall has its own PV and battery setup. There's Plainfields Pavilion has got a large PV array on it, plus an air source heat pump. As I said, mentioned the social housing retrofit, and we also paid for a zero carbon assessment of our community. So what is needed to get it going? Technical support is really, really important. That's one of the first things to look for, and there's lots of advice and lots of help out there. And you know, anyone that's been presenting tonight can signpost you to that. Having a really good treasurer is important. You've got to keep a close eye on the money. You've got to be incredibly determined. It's not easy to do, but there's none of it's rocket science. But you've got to have a good level of determination and urgency. I think everyone on the call tonight probably pretty much realizes the climate emergency we are in the middle of. So we have to get cracking on these things. Consultation is really, really important. So we were really made a big effort to talk to our big community as much as possible, and just be open as you can with people, and that usually pays off. A cooperative landowner is rather important. Grid access is very important as well, but that's becoming more flexible these days with options for linking to battery schemes and so forth. Things become a little easier in some ways on that one. You've got to be ambitious, think big, because it's we have a big challenge to do, and it's worthwhile, as you can see from the community benefit that we've managed to give back to the community. It keeps everything more localized. Having a workable company structure is really important as well. There's a lot of things to line up, but it's all well worth it. So pitfalls to look out for: more pictures of cute sheep. Look out for naysayers. You'll always have them. Don't be put off by it. Be ready for multiple hurdles, and just go into it determined. Keep every aspect of the operation low carbon. So, for example, with our solar panels, with those the main support bars are just basically planted straight into the ground. There's no concrete involved there. Don't forget the multiple benefits you can get from these. So that it is a universally a good thing. Again, emphasising that good technical advice from the start, and be ready for any and all delaying tactics. The naysayers are still out there, and they'll try and trip you up. But also share and keep in touch with people on the call tonight as well, because we've all been there, and we can help out and help you out with anything that comes along. Hopefully I haven't gone too much over time. I shall stop my share. There you go, back to you, Sonia.
I think you're actually well within time, Steve. Thank you.
Good. Thank you.
Right, so I don't think any questions came up just yet, although I had one, which was, where do you get your technical advice from? Well, we were lucky. There was an organisation that we use that doesn't exist anymore, unfortunately. They were community renewable specialists, involving one of whom was my brother, which was rather handy. He used to be on the board of Co-op as well. But there's all sorts of help and advice out there, really. I mean, Sonia's got loads of connections. Pete's got loads of connections to help like that. So yeah, there are people we can find. Okay. And I think you've got time for one more question. Someone's come in. Steve, who owns the social housing And how has this worked out? Oh, that might be a longer question.
That's okay. No, I can keep it quite short.
Okay.
There's a number of different social housing providers in the village. Shall is one of them, and there's a couple of others. And it's worked out okay. We've managed to get a few houses done, but it can be challenging as well, because they've all got their own business plans, they've all got their own schedules. So what we've done is to try to get as close a relationship as we can with the key people in those housing associations, to keep reminding them that, look, we're here, we've got some funding, we want to help. It's been delayed a bit with some other funding that's coming at the moment, but I'm still working on it. So the determination still needs to come into a situation.
Okay, and one other question. Without the concrete, which is great, can you withstand increasing wind speeds?
Wow, good question, Cara. We think yes. All the design specs we did when we created it said yes. We've had quite a few big storms come in over the last 8 years, and they've never budged an inch. Probably because it's quite thick clay where we are, so you get down beyond about 6 inches and you're on solid clay. And I think they're sunk a good 2-3 meters into the ground. So yeah, I don't think they're going anywhere.
Great. Okay. Thanks very much, Steve. So we're now coming up to the time for Linda Wookey, representing Burnham and Weston Community Energy. Over to you, Linda.
Oh, thanks, Sonia. Just let me find my presentation. Can everybody see this now? That popped up for you? Excellent. Right, so I just wanted to kind of take you through a little about Burnham and Weston Energy. Let me just move this on. There we go. I wanted to tell you a little bit about who we are, our community benefit as well, and how we manage that. How we got here, so kind of share a little bit really about our journey to how we've got to where we are today, and the considerations are really things that we can see that have been important to us on that journey, and then a little bit more about what's next for us, what we're going to be looking at next. So I'm Linda, and that's not supposed to happen, let's just go forward. I'm one of the directors at Burnham and Weston Energy. In fact, the first employee of Burnham and Weston Energy too. Before now, we've been run with volunteers. So this is an exciting new realm for us as we look to see what new resource for us can look like and what it can transpire. We are, as you can see, and probably not surprising, we operate a very similar model in terms of the fact we use our energy that we generate, or surplus income that we generate from the generation of our energy to provide a community benefit fund. And we operate across Burnham-on-Sea and Weston-super-Mare and all the areas in between and just around about, and I'll show you a map in a minute. We've got some interesting objectives, as well as generating the solar power in order to have a community benefit, which we deliver through our fund. We also want to look at how we fit within the net zero transition and the carbon neutral ambitions locally and what we can do. And also we've been working with a local organisation, Bristol-based, called CSE, to support or use some of our grants to help households struggling with fuel poverty. So this is just really just to give you a bit of context of where we are. You're looking up north towards Bristol. You can see the projection into the sea there on your left, which is Brean Down, and we go up towards the area we cover in terms of where we look for community projects to support using our community benefit fund. Goes up there further, as you can see, into Weston-super-Mare and a bit to the south down to Burnham-on-Sea, Highbridge area. Over to the right, then you'll start to find Wedmore, as Steve pointed out on his map, and that's where we cross into our neighbours' territory with Avalon and Wedmore, and up to north with low carbon Gordano, and further south then you come to Brendan Energy. Our solar panels are, we've got about 36,000 of them, which generates 9.3 megawatts of, 9.3 solar megawatt solar array is made up of about 36,000 panels. That means we can generate the equivalent of electricity for the equivalent of over 2,000 homes. So as I was saying, you can see here we use the surplus of our community, of our energy and generation, to go into a pot once we've paid back the money that we owe to our investors. That's over our lifetime, about 25 years, is expected to generate about £3 million. That's roughly about £50,000 a year on average. That £50,000 we use to make the grants, our community benefit grants, which we administer currently through Somerset Community Foundation. We've used about half of that as well to fund the fuel poverty advice for those living locally who need the support to improve the energy efficiency of their homes, or to look just to look for advice about how they might reduce their energy demand. And as I mentioned, this kind of circle there shows you the realms with it, roughly within the realms of which we support those community projects. The types of projects that we've supported so far are quite they've been quite small in nature. Our average grants range probably between about £1,500 to £2,500. We've funded a variety of grants, from increasing energy efficiency in community spaces, such as in scout huts, and community use spaces such as parish halls and youth centres. We've also funded them as well, used the money to support organisations such as this one, which is Friends of Grove Park in Weston-super-Mare. They came to us asking for new recycling bins. Actually, they've built a really, really lovely projects, or improved the projects and the offers that they can do, deliver locally with that grant. So that not only the recycling bins have gone in, but we've heard how this has helped more volunteers congregate into the space and work more so with the local communities to pick up litter and recycle more waste. So it's been a really, really exciting project. We funded also things like community benches and a youth group to develop more creative, eco-friendly activities with their young people that they support. I thought I'd share as well a little bit about how we got to this. The photo there you see was from our launch when the solar array went live. It took us quite an interesting journey to get there. We started out with an organisation called Community for Renewable. So they support community energy companies like ourselves to get up and running and help us manage the whole kind of process of negotiation that we needed in order to get our solar array into our hands and set up as a community energy organisation. Our solar array was actually the development was under development by a commercial developer. The time and circumstance put them into a situation where they needed to look for a community energy company who could take on that development. They went to Community for Renewables, or CFR, with the 9.3 megawatt solar site that we now have. It took quite a process of negotiation and working with the developer. It took CFR to set up Burnham and Western Energy, for them to use £100 of risk investment, sorry, 100,000 KUS risk investment to help them negotiate the acquisition of the solar farm. Then they had to borrow £11 million to help fund that acquisition, and they refinanced that then with a £7 million loan through Triodos, and also £4 million through a community bond offer. And then finally we were able to launch with the successful raising of that money in 2018 as Burnham and Western Energy. Steve talked about pitfalls, so I've kind of also thought about what our considerations along that route have been, and thought about the things that we could probably share with you as you're thinking about different types of projects. So our project at the moment is purely that 9.3 megawatt solar, ground-mounted solar. It's, as you know, as I just told you, was through a commercial development. That's actually on land that we lease from a local farmer as well, and he still uses that land to graze his sheep. It took quite a considerable amount of time. It wasn't an easy overnight success through all the negotiations and the acquisitions, and not only with the commercial developer, but also discussions with the bank and investors. And obviously the time it took as well to raise the investment through the bond offer. Scale was quite important for this project. Probably to get a return, a better return, we'd rather wanted to develop a project from scratch ourselves. That would certainly give us a greater margin of return and much more profitable. But then we would obviously carry much greater risk. Going through an acquisition method meant that it was very much less risky than developing ourselves, but the much less marginal gains. Also, one of the points at which it gets quite a bit scary was when it was going through planning, and obviously you've got at-risk investments in play at that particular time. Had planning not gone through on a project like this, then we would have lost that money. The next steps for us, we're taking the opportunity at the moment to review what we do and how best we can use our £50,000 a year community benefit fund. As I mentioned, we've split it up until now between fuel poverty advice and projects, community-led projects. We've seen amazing benefit from doing that. We're just taking a point at the moment just to review exactly what that could mean if we start to look at how we might work with other funders, how we might work with other partners, how we might join up some dots between some of the communities and people with some great ideas in the area that we're serving. So those between Burnham-on-Sea and Weston-super-Mare and in and around up along the coastal area. And the second thing we're looking at is the growth of Burnham Western Energy and how we might achieve that. We've got the single solar farm at the moment, so we've got some early stage discussions, just exploring what's the growth of the community energy company, such as Burnham Western Energy, could look like at the moment. With so that's also looking at other further ground-mounted solar, but also rooftop opportunities as well. And that's it from me. Thank you very much for listening, everybody.
Thank you very much, Linda. Again, bang on time. I'm going to hand over very swiftly to Richard Brunning, representing Brendan Energy. If you're there, Richard.
Yeah. Hi there, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Just trying to get started.
This is all very efficient. Well done, everyone.
I can't. Okay, so Brendan Energy, community benefit cooperative for a long while now. We did our first share offer back in 2011, in the summer of 2011, for this building, which is Children's Centre in Liston. So we had that installation in 2000 for our first roof-mounted solar installation.
Richard, can I just interrupt you for a second? You might want to stop your video because your sound is coming out quite glitchy. I'm wondering if you stop your video, it might help.
Okay. Can you hear me at all?
We can hear you. It's still a little bit glitchy. Keep going if it's If the sound's too bad, we'll think of something else.
This is with the Liscombe internet for you. This is the area we cover. These are our installations to date. We've got 13 of them, solar installations, all done between 2012 and 2016, when the feed-in tariff changed. On things like village halls, schools, community centres, other ones like sports pavilions. So we do it on a range of community buildings. Years time, which is our predicted life of all these schemes. In terms of community benefits, the buildings all get the free use of the electricity generated. So because they're all used, that's good during the day. We also have community funds associated with all of those developments. We've got 11 separate ones. Some of those, some have sent them to the British Fund, which I think works the best, where it's open to any good cause in that local area, and it's voted on by Brendan Energy members each year. So I think that's a really nice way of getting the membership involved. We've distributed, and the members get a return of about 4 to 5%. So this is just showing you the different places where generating electricity, schools, village halls, etc. To just showing how we've developed as a community energy society from back in 2012 when we just had one. By 2016 we were getting them all going. So last year has been a record year, but that's just because it's been a bit sunnier last year. So last year was 227, almost 228 kilowatt hours generated. So we've got big one on schools and community centre, 10k bracket, some of which have problems occasionally and then recover. So that's the nature of things. We have looked at other things. We've looked at quite feasible, but quite interestingly, it generated a huge amount of controversy locally and a massive amount of bitterness. And it was that more than anything else that led us to not pursue the wind turbine route. It might be different today, but they've got a hydro scheme on Bolham Weir and River Ex. Feasible, did well with planning. So the thing that scuppered that was that some of the people involved just wanted too much money, basically. So that was the major problem with that one. And at the moment, we've got an RCF grant to look at renewable energy, electric trains from go-op train into a train co-op. Looked at New Cross Somerset as a cooperative railway scheme. So that'll be a ground-mounted solar one, looking to charge up a battery that would charge up the trains when they come into the station. One looks like it's going to be grid connection, but we're in the midst of feasibility at that for the moment. Sorry about the appalling sound.
Okay, thank you, Richard. Yeah, that was slightly glitchy, I think, but we got an idea from your slides of the amazing things that Brendan Energy is helping to do. If anyone's got any questions about that, send them in to me. I am going to move swiftly on to Rob Cotterill. We were going to have Chris Adcock presenting on behalf of South Somerset Community Energy, but Rob has stepped in at the 11th hour. Thank you, Rob. Chris had some other things he needs to deal with.
Hello. Let's see if we can work this. Everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
Good. Okay, let's see if we can share this. Everybody see that now? Right, my name's Rob Cotterill. I'm a director, one of the directors of South Somerset Community Energy Society. Like Sonia said, I'm standing in for Chris, who prepared this presentation. So this is his work, really. And Chris is one of the founder directors of this Energy Society. So this basically the same things I'm going to cover this evening.
Can anyone see the presentation? I can't.
No, I can't either. Sorry.
No, not yet. You need to click on share screen.
Ah, yes. Sorry. Try again. Is that better?
No, not yet.
Oh, I see. Right.
Yes.
Got it. Sorry, newbie at doing a presentation on Zoom. Sorry. Here we go. There we are. You've probably heard me, but so I will carry on with the words. There we go. So we have 4 projects, and I'll cover the various bits and pieces that other people have been talking about as well. So how did it come about? Well, it was started in 2015 by John Clark as councillor on South Somerset District Council. He was elected in 2015 as well, so that was a rather busy year for him. And so he saw an opportunity, and his idea really was to look at a business model based on the Plymouth Energy community, which probably fairly similar to other ones that we've been talking about this evening as well, with our objectives to reduce carbon emissions in South Somerset, fuel bills, especially for schools and community buildings, those in fuel poverty. John went on to recruit 2 more directors to help assist him in this task. So the 3 founders got the scheme up and running, and that was David Rabone, who's now retired from us, and Chris Adcock, who is now our treasurer. So the business model, it's a community benefit society. We're incorporated, so you'll see us as SSCES Limited. We are also known as SSCom as well, so just to confuse things, but there we go. Our fundraise was initially via FX, so there's a lot of, there were actually three different share offers in 2015, 2016, and the later issues were really with the fundraising from the members as well. Our aim was a 5 to 6% interest rate over 20 years, and as it's now 2021, we're just at the point next year of starting the first of 15 years of repayment of capital to our investors. Now, see, the size of us compared to some of the other people speaking this evening, our capital raise was just over a bit over £500,000 from 126 investors, and so the business model is probably as many of the others who have solar PV on as a rooftop solar, is that to find a building and a community who actually use a lot of daytime electricity, of course, so you can sell them to that at a better rate than they would be able to get it from the big 6. So we started with a 4.5 to 5p a kilowatt hour rate for our electricity sold. We were claiming a feed-in tariff of about 10p, with the surplus sold to the grid at a much reduced rate. So you can see it's much better if you're doing a rooftop solar commercially, or for a somebody that you need somebody with a high daytime usage. Who we are? There's 5 of us on the board. John Christmas, who's in the audience tonight, is our chair, and he joined the board in 2018 and became chair in 2019. Councillor John Clark is the company secretary. Chris Adcott's treasurer. Then there's myself, Rob Cottrell, and Ed Collins. Could do with a few more really, because it does fall on quite a few, not very many people really, and there's a lot to do always. We do have 2 part-time and freelance staff, administrator and accountant, who keep us on the straight and narrow financially and keep us running right. So onto the projects. We have 4 of them. Like I said, they're essentially on school buildings. So the biggest of ours is a 245 kilowatt peak arrays on Westfield Academy in Yeovil. And if you can see from the Google Maps picture on the screen, the main arrays are on this building down here on the bottom of the screen, which is the lower school. It's all flat. That's all flat roof, I think. But they're also on the sports hall in the middle of the screen, next to the inflatable sports hall, which is the big silver thing. And also some small arrays on the main building, which is the old school, on pitched roofs at the top of the screen, some of which are causing us some problems at the moment, because the one in the middle there is a 3-storey. You can see the savings that we've arranged for the school, or through the payments for the schools there, and that was 2015. The next one was also 2015. It's a much smaller one for a community building in Abbey Manor Centre in Yeovil. Third one, another academy, Stanchester, near Ham Hill, Stokes of Hamden, where we've got just over a 100 kilowatt peak arrays, again on several different buildings. The silvery one is a sports hall with which is a flat roof, as far as I remember, and then the 2 pitched roofs with south facing along the back and an east facing on the other main building. This and the next one were commissioned 2016, and they just squeaked into for the feed-in tariff before it stepped down at a much lower rate, and that would have really upset the business model and the returns possible. Then lastly, our 4th one, Holyrood Academy in Chard, where just under the 100 kilowatt, 92 kilowatt peak, and again commissioned in 2016, where we've got 5 different buildings here. All of these are flat roofed. And the flat roofs have caused some problems, which I'll just speak about at the end. So our achievements. So hopefully so far we've had carbon savings from about 2,250 megawatts of solar electricity produced, and a good financial saving to the schools as well, to their budgets. Our community benefit fund isn't really up and running yet. Our business plan is that it will kick in towards the end of our scheme. So any tips for anybody else thinking of producing a community energy scheme? The feed-in tariffs have now long gone, so that's not really an issue for anybody starting again. But we did have an off-gem audit, which was pulled out a lot of hair from John Clark, I think. Lot of issues, making sure that legally and planning is all up together, and that you're as it's a rooftop solar up, we have roof leases from the academies or from the schools, which is county council. Has caused some issues with a lot of other community energy schemes as well, I believe. and with the office in town, you also have a power purchase agreement, which is how with the schools, which is where they get their rate of energy purchase. Operations and management and maintenance now are major issues, really. And making sure that your roofs are accessible. This causing some issues at the moment with health and safety, and also the working at height regulations. As opposed to a ground array, you've got to get up there, and the compliance with the health and safety officers of different academies is interesting. Make sure your roofs have a long expected life. One of our roofs did have to have some work, so in the past couple of years, so we did have to remove a section of panels and then replace them. So that's one more thing which needs to be in your agreement with the owner or the leasee. Meetings and readings all need to be have a system in place. That there are remote systems available, obviously for a price. Our fundraise was by use of FX, the online platform, crowdfunding, but that did mean that a lot of our, unlike myself and John and one or two other, Ed, who are local, many more of our members and shareholders are not local to South Somerset, unfortunately. So perhaps consider how you could get more local buy-in to achieve your scheme. I'll click onto the last slide here, our way ahead. So we start repaying our investors next year. So we're in year 5 from the initial share offer, and we'll be repaying over the next 15 years. Obviously keeping the systems up as fully operational as possible, panel cleaning, and making sure there's any glitches. So actually making sure you've got some sort of monitoring, ongoing monitoring is essential, and that there are, well, we have a package with Fronius, who supplied the inverters for all our schemes, and you can look at a very, very great solar web, it's called, I think, online, and you can see how much you're producing each day, and therefore you can look at trends and any glitches that there are, and hopefully get on top of those quite quickly. We have funds in the bank, which obviously at the moment this very minimal or zero rate interest era that we're living in means that we're not getting too much back on that. So we are looking for some other small projects. And also there are only the 5 of us directors, so we really could do with some more help. So if you're interested and live in our area, great, get in touch. We're also looking to improve our communications and links with the students at the academies and the academies themselves. And then lastly, John Christmas has been involved in the Somerset collaboration, which has been brilliant, I think, with the other community energy groups in Somerset, so we can learn from experience across the region, across the sector. Other ones that many people work with is Regen. That's a very good information source, and previously, pre-COVID, conferences and things where community energy sector got together to discuss the situation. So there we go, at the bottom of the screen is our website, ss.com.energy, and our email address. So thank you for listening. See if I can.
Thank you very much. Got one question directly for you. Oh no, this is actually, yes, for you. What are the flat roof issues you have had at South Somerset Community Energy?
Water, really, and drainage. As they're flats, and you've put an extra construction on top of the roof, which wasn't in the planning of the roof itself. You know, with the frames and the wires, you can get a build-up of moss and vegetation if the roofs themselves are not being looked after properly.
Okay.
Which has, you know, that's caused a, you know, we've had some water ingress into some of the cabling and things, which has caused some outages.
Okay. I am going to, we've got 15 minutes left. And I'm just wondering, because I believe that we also have present a number of people from local authorities, not only here to answer questions, but also to ask. There was an interesting question that came in before our forum about how local authorities could work with community energy groups to provide community energy projects in Somerset. If anyone would like to answer that question, we'll come up with some ideas of collaboration.
Shall I answer that?
Yeah, go for that, Cara.
Hello everyone. So not only am I involved in community energy groups, but I also happen to be the environment specialist for South Somerset District Council. My colleague Abby was on the call earlier, who's from Somerset County Council. And I've got Jacob on the call from Mendip here as well, and possibly another. So trying to collaborate through the councils, looking at opportunities for a feasibility study to look at viability for renewable energy across the county is the first step, and then hopefully to engage with community energies on how that can be delivered. But it turns out that it's quite a lot of money for a feasibility study, so trying to find £40,000+ is becoming a bit of a hurdle at the moment. But also looking at opportunities. I know that the community energy projects have also been seeking ways that local authorities could also purchase, as well as communities, directly from community energy companies. And we're looking closely at Devon County Council, who are trying to crack that nut in order for their energy supply to come from local community energy generation. So there's lots of things going on behind the scenes as to how we can achieve that. But the first thing is, if we can get a feasibility study done at county level with all the districts, then we can start to look at viability and find solutions to work together.
Thanks, Cara. That's very helpful. I noticed you also came up with a suggestion about potentially fundraising for solar for schools. I wonder if that could be a joint initiative between local authorities.
Could I contribute?
Yeah,
Sonia?
Please do.
Hi, Stuart here. Just to complement and add to what Cara has just been sharing, just so that you know, the Southwest Energy Hub is behind, as Cara was alluding, there's quite a lot going on behind the scenes, and they are liaising with Abby at Somerset County Council about the possibility of setting up two webinars in the new year. One was in fact originally planned to be to share the information that has been shared tonight, which I think is extremely helpful, and well done Somerset County for organising this. But the second part, in any event, as Cara was alluding to as well, it was to find out at first hand about the progress being made in Devon, and then to really engage with our local authority potential partners in working out ways in which, with enough oomph, Somerset, especially under this new unitary authority, could begin to take advantage of their experience in Devon and build community-owned energy installations across the county. So all of us involved in community energy are really looking forward to the prospect of closer collaboration with our local authority partners in taking this forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, is that my sound doing some strange things? We've got 10 minutes left. I'm quickly having a look through. We're not getting so many questions in, more comments. does anyone think that the coming unitary Somerset Council will work with energy groups to release land for solar and wind projects? Is there anyone from the local authorities represented got any idea of the answer to that question?
Shall I come in again?
Yes, please, Cara.
So councils are still very early in the process of sorting out what shape and form the new council is going to be, and with that addressing all the assets the different councils own. So it's a bit soon for that, but I do know that Somerset County Council have retained some of the community farm land, the county farmland, sorry, that are viable for renewable energy, so they may well be doing phase 2 that will engage community energy, but again it's a bit soon for that too. So hopefully in time that will come, and as I alluded to, there is this proposal to do a feasibility study, which again would look at all land viability that the councils have, but it's a little way down the line yet.
Thank you, Cara. I don't know if anybody else has anything to say on that. We've got lots of comments generally about wind projects potentially getting a better reception these days than when Brendan first came in. There's lots of guides. I'm going to share all of these, the links at the end of our forum when I email everyone with the video link. We've got a general question from Ed Collins. What do the various community energy societies see as their future beyond the end of their 20-year fit periods? For example, in 2035, is it possible for community energy societies to continue, or are they likely to be wound up? What do they need to do to survive post-fit?
Happy to take that one if you like, Sonia.
Yes, please.
I mean, what I imagine the rest would say as well is that we build it into our business plans that we would have monies available at the end of a project to remove all the equipment properly and recycle it and so forth, or depending on what the situation is, you know, replace it with more efficient panels if that's still the technology that's appropriate. But it's eminently possible to carry on these community energy schemes, and hopefully they should grow and grow. If anyone's seen some of these amazing programs about community energy, especially in places like Germany and Denmark and places, you know, there's huge potential, but we're just barely scratching the surface of in the UK. So yeah, lots and lots to be done, and plenty of opportunities for groups like ours, I think.
Can I add to that?
Yes, please do.
I'm in the Dorset Community Energy, so not quite in the same county as you. I think there are opportunities. I mean, Steve has outlined to us a pretty large ground-mounted solar farm, and there's others as well. I think that's one way to go. We've all been doing lots of rooftops. I mean, Dorset Community Energy has done 24 rooftop installations since it was created in 2013. Some of them 12 kilowatts and some 100 kilowatts or so. But I think we have to upscale to overcome the loss of fits. So ground mounted solar, we are looking at a sort of an acre of solar as our next step. But also in the chat, I've put that we're beginning to look at heating networks as well, where you go into a heat supplier agreement rather than an electricity power purchase agreement. So I think there are diversifications in different directions to continue the community energy theme. In reality, the biggest challenge in terms of carbon reduction is in the heating system anyway, from where I'm standing. So I think there's lots to be done.
Thank you, Ralph. I can see two people with their hands up. I'm just going to, Peter Kappener, you've got your hand up.
Thanks. I think Michael was first.
Oh, sorry.
You might cover it, Peter, so you better go.
Okay. So, in fact, Sonia's made in the chat has made one of the points that I was going to say, that the feed-in tariff won't bring projects to an end. We have ground-mounted schemes that we've just extended the planning permission on, got an extra 10 years on a ground mount solar, extended the lease. So it has a 40-year life.
Wow.
Over the 20 years of the FIT contract. So doubling the length of the FIT life. And obviously you will get less income in that final 20 years. But by that point, you'll have paid off the capital, so there'll be a lot lower outgoings. So projects will survive after the FIT, but on top of that, as Steve was saying, there's financial models that will enable us to build new projects in a subsidy-free world, whether that's on the rooftop, and there's been lots of chats about rooftop schemes and on schools and elsewhere. I would add that looking at schools does bring issues, additional issues, both in terms of operation maintenance. You have to visit schools more often, but also you have to get approval from DFE for putting solar on schools, in most cases, not diocesan schools, but in most cases, which is another hurdle, but it's now becoming a lot easier than it was. There is a process now to do that. So, but I think the subsidy-free world is kind of opening up for community energy. On the wind side, I would say that it's becoming perhaps a little easier, but it will require more proactive policy around local planning to really make it work. So we see some local authorities introducing areas of search for wind turbines within their local plan, or even at a community level within neighbourhood plans. And that's what's going to be required to overcome the national planning constraints that government has implemented to restrict onshore wind. And so that's an opportunity, going back to what local authorities can do, is kind of put in proactive policies around wind energy that will at least open the door to possible planning success. Obviously, it will depend on a case-by-case basis, as you would expect within the planning process, but at least it opens up the possibility of success. And just finally, just say that I think there are other opportunities for community energy beyond renewables, both on battery storage that will help us maximize the value of the renewables, but also around working directly with households on flexibility, on demand management, demand reduction, and even energy efficiency. Although on energy efficiency, it's much more difficult to create a model that will work unless government really pulls its finger out and helps create a market for energy efficiency. So just finally, to echo Steve's point, there's lots that could be done here, and I think it's a really exciting time to get involved in community energy.
Thanks, Peter. I think we've just got time for a couple more questions. I can see that Abigail's got her hand up. Abigail Lamberty, if you'd like to unmute and go ahead.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah, I think what we need to do is have a meeting with the key decision makers at the local authorities to showcase the work that community energy groups are doing in Somerset and also beyond, just to show what's achievable and what's already happening. So that's my first point. We need to do the feasibility study. And in terms of schools, I think from the county council's perspective, we were supportive of community energy and solar on schools, but we came across an issue where a community energy group had put solar on one of the schools. I think the building had to be knocked down, and then the council had to pay some fees for the remaining lifetime of the feed-in tariff. So that caused a bit of an issue in terms of agreeing leases for community energy groups. But there are schools in the county which do not come under the county council. So, for example, the church schools. So if you need a list of those, I can provide those. But yeah, that's where we are at the moment.
Thank you, Abigail. I think that would be really helpful if you could send in that list. If you could email that to me at somersetcan@gmail.com, and I'll send that out to people.
Okay, thank you.
And I did see Linda had, Michael, do you still want to ask a question?
If you don't mind, yeah.
Yes,
I just
please,
wanted
Michael, go ahead.
I'll try and be quick, yeah. I think it's fantastic hearing what everyone's doing, and I think the last speaker was right. We do need councils to hear what's going on, and I can't stress how important it is that we get this collaboration, because you're doing the things that councils ought to be doing. And I think, I don't know, I'm speaking for Mendip District Council. I've been trying to get them, and the Greens have been trying to get them to do something with community energy groups. And this idea of a feasibility study seems to be coming out. Help with that seems to be coming out very top of the list. If councils at the moment, because of the unitary looming, don't have the appetite to invest big time in energy, then they can at least help the groups that are doing it. And I think we do need to build a really good bond between the groups and the next unitary council, which I'm not sure I'll ever be a part of. It's not in my hands, it's in the hands of the voters. But I just think you're all doing a fantastic job. And I'd love it if Mendip District Council actually built some solar on one of its own buildings in Frome, which has already been identified by Freco as being suitable. A very large warehouse building where they'd use energy during the day, because that's what their business model is. They send out stuff, mail order. And because they were put off by the fact that they had this problem, they don't own, well, they own the roof, but they've leased it to someone else. And yet, apparently that's not an insurmountable problem. It's easily sorted out. And it just drives me mad. I think you should all be emailing the council saying, can we work with you? Because they're just missing a big trick. And I think Mendip have missed a trick. And, you know, anyway, thanks very much, everyone. I'll shut up now.
Thank you, Michael. I think that's some great ideas. There's a lot of large buildings around Somerset that really could be earmarked, and I think, you know, it's up to people to really look in their districts, you know, like a local college, local school, the bigger buildings, and our local authority buildings, and let's see if we can at least start some partnership and collaboration from that point. We have come to the end of our time. It's now 8:32. We've actually run 2 minutes over. If anybody present has any other questions, please do feel free to email me at somersetcan@gmail.com. I will just put that in the chat again. somersetcan@gmail.com. And I will get them forwarded to the right people. Thank you very, very much for your time. Thank you very much to all of our speakers. It was a proper whirlwind tour of everything that's going on in Somerset, and I think we should absolutely, Somerset needs to give itself a pat on the back, because I think that's outstanding, really, the amount of energy projects we've got going on. Really well done. And hopefully we'll see you all again on January the 13th.
Brilliant. Thanks, Sonia.